welcome to the last day. It's been a short and long ride together. So our second to last session today will be effectively checking for student comprehension, and it will include assessment, a little bit of assessment. Once again, I have developed this for English teachers, but there's some things that you will also be able to use, and some things that you might want to use when you have your English writing classes in the future. Okay. So, all right, so just to warm up, to get you talking, how do you check for student comprehension in your classes? How do you find out if they understand what you have presented or what you have talked about in your group, little groups? How about a group of 3 here and a group of 3 here? Just real quickly, talk about how do you check for student comprehension. You can take it, put it out there. Okay. So what kind of open-ended questions? What are some, for example, having them explain in further detail on the topic, or okay, great. So what are some ideas you have talked about? How do we check for student comprehension? We'll start here. How about you two ladies? What did you talk about? By asking questions, what kind of questions? What they understand. Okay, what else? You do the same? Same thing? Do you understand? What else? We've had some open-ended questions. Do you ask open-ended questions? Some practice. Okay. All right. So there's kind of 5 basic ways that teachers usually check to see if students understand. First of all is the look. I think they understand. I think they understand. The other one's the feeling. I feel good about this. Everyone seems engaged, so I'm pretty sure they probably understand. Then we have the question. Do you understand? Right? We have the test, okay, which we just test there for facts. And then finally we have the show and tell, and this is usually some kind of project or presentation. Hello, welcome. Okay. All right, so one of the things we like to try to do, especially we're talking about learner-centered teaching or student-centered learning, is put students in charge of their own comprehension checks. So we're going to do an example with that. I have a copy from one of our writing books. So you might have to share. I don't know if I have enough here. Let's see. 2, 3, I have one more here. One more. Okay? So I'm going to use yours for an example. What I'd like you to do is I'd like you to read this sample essay. So this is a sample of an explanatory essay. This is probably for high intermediate students. I want you to read it, and when you finish, I want you to work alone. I want you to write 3 questions from the essay. So I want you to think, if you were going to give a test about this essay, what 3 questions would you ask on it, okay? So go ahead, first read it, and then write down your 3 questions. Go ahead. So it begins on page 3, I believe, or the 3rd page. Sorry, I don't have any more copies. That's okay. You can relax. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but it's just that it's so natural. We do that also. We do that also in regular conversations. Yeah,
and that's why you need to make an effort to refrain from that.
Sure. It can be difficult.
Yeah, really difficult.
questions, make them good, interesting questions. Okay? The best ones you can. Oh, okay. So make sure your questions are written alone, not with your partner.
Oh.
Alone. This is an individual project. Sorry, you have to read together just because I don't have enough copies. But pretend like you're reading your own. Your questions can be in Georgian or English, whichever you want to use is okay. Georgian or English. hand if you need a little more time to finish your question. Who needs more time? Okay, that's fine. About 1 minute left to finish your question. You should have 3 questions. You wrote 5? That's okay. Actually, it's usually 5, but since it's a shorter essay, I just made it 3. So if you did 5, that's okay. 30 seconds left. Huh? Yeah. I don't know. What's Sayak could be a guy. Girl or guy. Yeah. But did you get clues from the reading? No.
Because she said that yes. From a girl to
Context clue. I guess a guy could write about that.
Well, yeah. It's difficult to say.
Okay, if you are not finished, it's okay. Hopefully you have at least 2 questions. Now, what you need to do is you need to ask one of your classmates one of the questions. So for example, you have 3 questions. You need to ask question number 1 to someone, question number 2 to someone else, and question number 3 to a different person. So 3 questions, 3 people, so you might have to move. You cannot ask the person who is sitting beside you. Okay, you have to ask someone new. Okay, so go ahead, I'm going to give you 3 minutes, test your classmates, go. See if they can answer your questions. Feel free to move around if you need. You might have to move. It's hard in this class. Yeah. We needed our other.
Yeah, that's
Stop.
And we'll still have
Well, it takes a while to change. And students feel safe and you can't ask the person beside you, so you have to move. Yes, this isn't a torture. Yeah. So maybe the 2 on the end. You can ask in English and Georgian or Georgian. One brave person that
what you mean. One question per person.
Yeah.
So don't waste all your questions on one person, please. Just be
It's not terrible. It could be worse. Okay, go ahead. Even if you're not finished, go back to your seat. Go back to your seat. I finally got one person to move. Okay, so this is a good activity if you give a home task reading or if you do a reading in class. Do you ever do readings in class? Do you read example essays in class? If you do them in class, this is a good way to get students to think about the reading, not just as a student, but as a teacher too. If it's a home task, part of their homework could be to come up with the questions and bring them in the next day for a warm-up. You know, writing doesn't always have to be quiet and sitting. So I usually have the students, if they do it in class, I have them read the text twice if it's shorter. If it's longer, of course, we don't have time to do that. And then I have them gauge around the length of the essay, 7 questions or 3 questions for an essay like this. I always tell my students, okay, think about who in the class you're going to ask each question. Okay, think about who you want to ask for question 1. Yes, because if there's lower level students, students might write an easier question from them. If it's higher level, they try to trick them or challenge them, right? So it helps if you tell your students to, when they write a question, they need to write a person's name or a student's name.
Why all of them?
They might always choose that, yeah. Then if you see them all going the same one, you would have to, as a teacher, pull them to another one. Yeah, that could be tricky. If you have a class where everyone's interacting, this can work well. If you have a class where there's some people who are quieter and not really talking, it might not work. So you might have to assign that, and that's okay too. And then have them move. Get them to move. Don't let them sit in little circles and talk. Have them move around, get the blood going. So this shows students how much they know more than how much their classmates know. And if a student gets asked a question by their classmate and they don't know the answer, it's not so embarrassing as if they don't know the teacher's answer, right? They can kind of joke, or their classmate might help them. Classmates are usually friendlier than the teacher, right? You know, they can help. And classmates usually know which kind of questions other people might be able to ask. So this is a good way to put the learning in their ballpark. So how is this learner-centered, this activity?
Well, they discuss.
They discuss.
Yes.
They make the questions.
And
they're the teachers, right? You don't do anything, okay? So, you know, it links the reading to the people. You know, they are actually thinking about who they're going to ask in the question, so in the classroom, so it makes it more interesting, even if it's a reading that's not so interesting to them. It gives students, it gives them that power, a little bit of power. They can find out what they understood about the reading without a teacher pointing it out to them, and before the test, okay? And you don't have to do any comprehension questions, okay? Sometimes I will take a question from each student and maybe put it on the test if we're having a test that's comprehension, because you can't have writing without reading, right? Reading's a very big part of it. If students aren't reading, they're never going to get the hang of the writing, so it's very important. So sometimes I might do that. Sometimes I might say, I'll choose the best questions for the test, so it really gets them thinking and being creative with it. Okay? All right. Another thing I like to do, if we're giving home task readings or they have examples and the students are doing the same thing, either from a textbook or just an assignment that you have given them, I like to do index card summaries. Okay? So what I'll do is, if we have a unit or a lesson or a topic, every once in a while I will give them little cards, or you can just tear paper. And on one side, side one, I will have them based on our study of academic essays, or based on our study of how to do research. Okay? What is a big idea that you understand about this? Summarize it. Okay? On the back side, you can say, okay, from this unit, what are some things you don't understand or you're not very clear on? And then you collect those, and then you can have a better understanding of what your students really are understanding and what they're not. Because, of course, sometimes when you think they're understanding, they're just acting like it or saying they do because they don't want to be embarrassed. But I do this every so often, especially if we're working with challenging concepts, or if some of you have non-native speakers, this is a good way to give them a chance to just write what, you could even have it as a homework, write your big idea that you know on one side, write your things you're not sure about on the other, and I will collect them tomorrow. It gives them a freeing opportunity. You could do this in an email too. The big idea that you understand and the little ideas that you don't understand. But you have to make it part of the assignment or part of their homework, otherwise they won't do it at all. Okay? All right, let's see. So everyone, teachers do this all the time. Do you understand? And what do students do?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Because it's embarrassing if they don't understand. And if they say no, then they know their boring teacher will keep talking, right? Right. So I try to teach my students some hand signals so they can be very specific. So if I say, do you understand? Okay. If the student says, yes, I understand, and yes, I can explain it to anyone in the class, they give a thumbs up, right? Thumbs up. Okay, do you understand? Okay. Okay, explain it to the class, right? Okay. If the student does not understand and cannot explain it, of course, I'm not sure what you're saying, okay? If the student is kind of sure, they kind of understand parts, but not the whole thing, of course, a little, you know, kind of, So do you understand? Do you understand? Okay, good, yeah. So it makes it more fun and students like it, and it's not as scary as, no, just like, they can kind of keep it to themselves if they want. It's good for your non-native learners too that need a little bit more time, or need a little bit, maybe are afraid to speak out. They could just be like, kind of. Okay? All right, so we had a question about split level yesterday. We have this often in the United States. Split level means, I'm telling you, split level means you have a group of students who are of a higher level, and you have a group of students that are not close to their level, but they're in the same class. Okay, so split. Some of you have native and non-native in your classes together. That's very difficult. Some of our classes we have, for example, we would have a speaking class of Chinese students and Saudi Arabian students. Who do you think are the better English speakers?
No.
Speakers.
Arabic.
Arabic students, right? They're very outgoing. They're very, very verbal. Chinese students, they learn English by writing. They don't speak a lot in their classes, so they're very quiet. So that's hard to have a speaking class with both. So we do have some things that we kind of do for different students, and also when you have different levels, abilities, it can be really hard. So these are just some ideas you might try. Always start your class as a full group, but if you have split levels, pretty much most of your classes need to be small groups and pairs, almost always. You need to have that. So start as a big group, split off into small groups and pairs. I say rotate groups, like ability and cross ability. Does anyone have a guess what those two things mean? If a group of like ability students together, or a group of cross ability students together. Any idea?
For example, native and non-native.
Sure.
Or just native.
Yeah, so sometimes you will have groups of native, native, non-native, non-native. Sometimes you will have cross ability, native with non-natives, natives with non-natives. Okay, so you have to mix it up constantly, otherwise students will become labeled as they can't do it, or it will cause a separation. So give opportunities, depending on what you're teaching, depending on the topic, depending on the practice, you might have to split native, non-native, okay? But having natives with non-natives is a good opportunity for the natives to be teachers and to show. It's a way for them to reinforce what they have learned, and it's a way of giving them a little power, feeling they can explain it to their classmates. Okay? And that's the second point here. Utilize groups that contain at least one native speaker who can easily explain to their classmates. Tell them, I'm counting on you. You could even talk to native speakers after class and say, I'm counting on you to help me be the teacher. Many times you can explain it even more simpler, or even simpler than I can. So, they like that. They feel a little bit of power. If you always put them with non-native speakers and you don't explain that, they can become resentful of these groups. But if you say, you are a teacher, we have many co-teachers in this class, I'm going to explain some concepts and you're going to have to re-explain them to the students, but that will reinforce your learning as well. Explain to them so that they know. Okay? Here's another option. If it's possible, at the end of each class to dismiss the native speakers 10 minutes early. This could be a time for your non-native speakers to ask questions that they would be embarrassed to ask in class. It could be a time that they could write their questions if they feel more comfortable writing. Although, did you say most of your Georgian learners are better at speaking than writing? Okay, so this could be their safe time. They can say, I don't understand this, or what do you mean by this? It could be a time to give a little extra practice, 10 minutes extra practice for them to get a concept. If this is possible for you, I would recommend that as well. Give them some time that they can have for themselves. Another thing you could do, that you should do actually, is work together with your colleagues. Use your syllabus and create split level activities. That means they're the same skills. They're learning the same skills, but the activities are level appropriate. Okay, so if we're learning how to put together an academic essay, maybe the non-native speakers need more visual, maybe like an essay map. It needs to be more visual to help them understand the concept. And the native speakers could have more written things like this, but they're still learning those same skills together. Okay. And then make sure you're giving lots of opportunities for personal writing, for them to write about themselves or for them to reflect about a concept or to give their opinions. This will help keep them in the class. If it's constantly academic and over their heads, you're going to just lose them. It's going to be hard to maintain their interest, and it's going to be hard to teach them, actually, and then they will end up failing. So that's another thing that we can do. So these are some things that maybe you could talk about with your colleagues in your meetings, maybe, and with Maya, how we could adjust for these. The best situation, of course, is a separate class for non-native speakers. That's what we have at most of our universities. They have separate classes of language support, but they attend regular classes for their majors with their American colleagues. Okay, so just for the language support, they have a separate class, and then they learn academic writing with language support. So maybe some year, maybe in the future, you could be a part of getting this established, an academic writing class for non-native speakers. Or when you get academic writing for English, a lot of your Georgian learners might be better in English and might have the option to take that class as well. So these could be options and things to think about in the future of your program, for sure, because that is a difficult situation. Okay, last thing, do you use rubrics for grading? I saw in the back of your syllabus you had a little rubric with the grading scale. Yeah. Do you use that for most of your writing assignments?
Well, when we're checking our homeworks,
Okay.
yes,
In class now, okay, so, but for homework. So I recommend when you're using rubrics, also you could make those level appropriate. So you're still grading all the students on the same skill. You're not making it easier for the non-native speakers, but you're making it language appropriate for them. Okay? How do you create your rubrics? Who makes your rubrics? Do you make them?
Yeah.
How do you do it?
Well, we all made this and it's same for everyone because
It's the same for everyone. Okay. Well, I want to show you a website you could use. It's called Rubistar, and it's really awesome. It's kind of like a teacher's savior. So I'm going to go through this and kind of show you what it can do for you. So Rubistar is a free website. It's put on by the U.S. Department of Education. And you can see here, the very first time you register, you have to fill in your name, last name, all of this stuff, and a zip code. It says, please enter your 5-digit U.S. zip code. You don't have a 5-digit U.S. zip code. Your zip code is 99999. Okay? So international users, when you register for this, you're 99999. Okay? The reason why they have this, they just want to see who is using this website so they can keep track. Okay? So let me log into my account and show you kind of how this awesome site works. Okay, so nope. Alright, so I'm now logged in. So I can create a new rubric of any of these, and you are writing people here. So we've got lots of different writing, essay writing, all these different things. And at the bottom we also have create a brand new rubric. So I'm going to show you an example here. For example, if I have my students write a persuasive essay, well, it's already here, so I can use this one. I click on it. Okay. All right. So I want to call this, what's a topic they have for persuasive essays? Is it free topic?
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll just say persuasive essay, let's see, advanced, for if you're teaching advanced level. Okay, you choose, is it temporary? You just want to use it once, or do you want to store it? I want to keep it in my file. Okay, I can save it. Okay, what's the highest grade you give for your essays?
15, 17, and 13.
So 15, you have 3 grades?
Yeah.
15?
Yeah. 17.
Okay.
Oh, 18?
Yeah.
Okay, so 18 is the highest?
The second one is 12,
This one's 12?
and the last one is 13.
So you, 13?
Yeah.
13.
Oh, so the ultimate, the highest is 30.
Highest is 13.
Ah.
Okay.
Yeah.
13
And then 12.
To 12.
Okay, and 12 is the lowest?
Yeah.
What if they do nothing?
Zero.
Nothing. Zero.
We need a 0. No zeros?
Let's take the final. So we use 30 for the final. Yes.
I'm talking about one assignment.
Oh,
Okay. One assignment. This is for an essay. One essay.
No, we don't actually do essays. We have a little bit different system.
You don't do essays?
Well, yes. This is not very
Oh,
much
okay,
the essay,
okay,
the way
okay.
when
All right.
it is done.
That's okay, that's okay. All right, well, this just gives you an idea. So let's just say, for me, I would have different things. I'd have a 5, 4, 3, 2, and maybe 2 is the lowest. Maybe we don't want to give low ones. Okay, so let's say I want them to have a position statement. They already fill this in for me. Or I can delete it and write my own criteria, okay? Second thing, I want them to have thesis. Oh, it already writes it. Or I can write my own, or you can write in Georgian. Okay? Here, How about, let's see, what do we want? Evidence and examples. I can choose sources. Did they use sources? And the last thing, how about grammar and spelling, or whatever you want to do. You can choose as many as you want. Submit. Okay. And here is my rubric. I can print it, and then when I give the students' essay back, I have circled the numbers that they get. So they see exactly why their score is that. It's not a guess. It's not like, this student's usually a pretty good student. They must have had an off day. Their essay isn't very good. I'll give them a 4.5 anyway, right? It's concrete, right? Sometimes you have students who maybe you don't really like, or they don't do a lot in your class, and you tend to give them lower anyway. This gives reasons, and students can specifically see how they can improve for the next time. You can create one of these for your native students and your non-native. Same skills, not easier, but level specific. So then this you can print, you can download, you can save it online to your site. So let's look at another one. If we go, you can do this for any of these. These are the ones they already have saved. You can start brand new. Okay, you tell how many columns you want. You tell them if you want it permanent or temporary. When will it expire? Maybe you don't want to keep it forever. Okay, so let's see, let's do 4 columns. Submit. Oh, oops. What did I do? Let's do 17. Oh, what did I do? Oh, the title. Let's say it is a cause and effect research essay. Okay. All right. So now you need to go and edit the columns, and you can do everything. So you can actually build it from scratch. But I like the ones that they already have. They do a pretty good job. So really you saw that it took no time to make a rubric. We use these a lot in the States. We use these mostly for almost every assignment. We have to give specific reasons why a student got a grade. And when a student says, oh, why did I get 15 out of 40? They can read it. This is why. Read it. Read the rubric. That's why. Instead of, just a number based on whatever. Okay? So I highly recommend using these if you, I don't want to save it. Let's see, find rubric. Okay, you can save in your teacher profile. Here's a tutorial which will show you how to do it if you have questions. Here it is in Espanol if you speak Spanish. Okay. All right. So let's say you can do keywords. Let's see. Research essay. See if they have it. So you can search for any of these words. No results found. Let's see. Research. You can search for ones that other teachers have saved. It won't let me take it up there. Ooh. See if we can find. I think it's still thinking. Well, anyway, it's kind of slow, but you can get the idea. So other teachers can save it and make it public, and then you can just use theirs. You can search for theirs if you have faster internet, right? So this is a great teacher tool, and like I said, the cool thing is because you're teaching Georgian classes, so you could go in and write in Georgian, and it's just very easy to set up. So you only use rubrics for the final grades?
No.
No.
We do a similar thing
Okay.
for every aspect of assessment.
Okay.
But we don't have the star.
Yeah, you do it on your own. This is a time saver. It's so much easier. Yeah. So I encourage you to set up an account, or even if you want a department account that you all use and store, you could just come up with a username and a password that you all use and save them all. That would be a good idea, and then go in and share them. So I hope you'll use this tool to save time, because teachers, we have no life, right? We have no family, no friends. No, I'm just kidding. Anything we can do to save time will help. So I encourage you to, once again, use rubrics in your assessment. it will help students to better understand what they don't understand and what specifically they can improve on, even more than you just talking to them and even more than just a grade. So, okay. Oh, I think that I've got the slide I need to show you. Sources. Okay, so does anyone have any questions about anything? They're just simple techniques. I hope they've inspired you to think of some things that you can do in your classes. Okay, so no questions? I've answered everything? How is this possible? Can you give this training to your colleagues in Georgian? Who wants to do it? Go to Rubistar, play around with it. You go on it just a little bit and you'll be able to teach it then to your colleagues. It is in English, but I feel it's simple enough that if they go through it, then they can write their own Georgian rubrics from it. It's simple enough that they can surely understand it. So, yeah.
Well, I still go to the foreigners. Well, how do you deal with when, for example, with Chinese and Arabic students are together and they try to work, and when one is silent and the other one is speaking? Because when I had such kind of challenge, well, I made so that these foreign students were with Georgian ones, but Georgian ones were making everything because they were too lazy to make. Of course, I understand. I was explaining that you have to understand, you have to try him to understand, but still they got tired because they don't understand anything, and so the women.
It is hard, especially when you have. See, none of my classes have Native Americans in them. They're all international students, so their common language is English. So, but this is a problem. We'll have lots of shy, lots of Asian students. They don't speak a lot in their English classes, and therefore their speaking is very poor. So I do a lot of vlogs, video logs. I have them video themselves and upload to their YouTube account to get them more and more speaking practice. The Arabic students can do it in one take. And they're like, oh, only 5 minutes? How about 20 minutes talking, The Chinese students are like, 5 minutes? But they can practice at their home and practice and practice and practice and then record the video. And if they don't like it, they can re-record it, which gives them more speaking practice. It builds their confidence. And then they post it online. And you could give students the option of that, recording videos, speaking practice, especially your non-native speakers. I make them keep YouTube accounts, and it's kind of like their online portfolio of speaking. Even in writing class, I've done this. So sometimes I'll have them record a video talking about the topic that they're going to be writing about so that they get speaking practice and they can organize their thoughts. And with your native Georgian speakers, they can also do this, and you can use it as a way to give feedback to them, personalized feedback, instead of meeting one-on-one. They can tell you, this is what I'm thinking of doing, and these are my ideas, blah, 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 and then you can give feedback on the comments. Another thing we do impromptu speeches. I have them in little groups of 3. I have one student stand up, timer for 1 minute, I ask a question. If you were any animal in the world, what would you be and why? 1 minute, go. And they must speak, and the 2 people listening must listen. It's small, teeny groups, okay? And then sit down, and the next one, and then sit down, the next one, and sit down. So it gives everyone opportunities to speak. But once again, using like and cross-level groups. Sometimes like level, sometimes cross-level, mixing, always mixing. Getting students comfortable with speaking is the challenge.
Yeah, because every time I get that, I stay after class and I'm explaining and I start the lesson.
We stopped. Yeah. I would try, if it's possible, if you can get through your content for your native speakers, let them out 10 minutes early. They'll love you for it, and you can work with the students that do need an extra amount of time. Okay, your native speakers could give up 10 minutes and ask you questions by email if they need.
I hate my email.
Well, yeah. Okay, or make an appointment if you have office hours or anything like that.
Yeah, I always stay, but it's really hard.
It is hard.
When they are staying, well, they are together, it's really, I know, how to explain.
The non-native speakers you're talking about,
because they really don't understand. It's actually really pretty easy with girls because when in the class there are a lot of girls, they can talk.
Yeah.
But with the boys there are some problems that they are shy and.
You could even have them keep, you could even have them get a little notebook that's specifically for things I don't understand, and just have them write it in there. The native speakers don't even have to know about it. You just tell them aside, you have these notebooks, 1 time every week or 2 times a week, I want this notebook, and you should have it something filled out in
From
it.
December till this day, I'm explaining to one student how to write an essay.
Yeah.
And she didn't understand.
It's difficult. With these students, they need language support. What if you were thrown in, who speaks French here? Who's a French speaker? And let's go write some essays in French. Let's try it. And for them it's embarrassing because in their native languages they can do these things and they can express themselves and they can write. So to have the other way is hard. And that's our challenge. That's your challenge especially because you don't have that separate language. So you'll have to brainstorm as a department. Where do you want to be in the future, and maybe with the rector even talking about these things. These are how changes are made. These are how new programs develop. If it becomes a big enough problem, they will need to have their own language support. So hopefully, I'll root for you to have that. Okay, all right, so we're moving on to the last one. Perfect timing. Restart again. Okay, so this one should be a little more fun, I hope. It's interesting. It's talking about teaching multiculturalism in a homogeneous classroom. And what do I mean by homogeneous? What is this crazy word? Alike. So it's talking about most of your students are Georgian. They come from Georgian culture. They speak Georgian language. They probably share a similar religion or similar thoughts, okay? Some of you teach classrooms where you have multiple cultures, and these things that we talk about today you can use in those. Really what we want to, the world's becoming smaller. We need to focus on multiculturalism, and I'll tell you more about that. But first, a cartoon. So this is kind of an interesting cartoon. I use this with my students to get them thinking about culture. So here we have 2 women. What are women? Women are daughters, sisters, mothers. What else? Wives, grandmothers, friends, caregivers, aunts, right? Women are all these things. Okay? These women have all these things in common. They're daughters, they are possibly mothers, they're sisters, they're people that someone loves. Yet one small difference, one small cultural thing keeps them from even talking to each other, from even looking at each other. And they even both think almost the same, that they both live in a male-dominated world. And they both do live in a male-dominated world. So they have all these things in common, but one small cultural difference keeps them from even talking. And this is a problem because our world is smaller. We have the internet. We're more connected. Many students are learning other languages, English, German, French. Why do we learn language? To connect with other cultures. Okay? Why do we practice writing, even in our native language? Why do we write? To connect, to communicate, okay? So languages, even our own, languages connect people. Stereotypes disconnect people. So if we want our students to be full students of the world, when we say you must connect, you must share your ideas, you must share your thoughts, you must learn other languages, you must travel, but then we still teach through stereotypes, this won't work. So here's a little bit of research here. It says, it's talking about EFL learners, English as a foreign language, but this applies to any learners, I think, any university students. If they are to become successful intercultural communicators, they must learn specifically about multiculturalism and how to be multicultural, because we don't learn that We don't specifically learn that. Okay, so with your partner, let's see, 2, 2, 2, 2, perfect. I would like you to talk about what is culture, and I want one person to write in their notebook everything you think of. So what makes a person's culture? Any person. You don't have to be specific, just general. I'm going to give you only 1 minute. Go. You can write in Georgian, it's fine. What is culture? What makes a culture? So talk with your partner and write down what you write, or what you think of. Okay, if there's something from here you don't have, add it to your list. If you don't have it, write it onto your list. Add what you don't have. Add what you do not have. Child rearing means how do we raise children? How do we bring them up? Okay, you got your list. Did you add to your list? Okay. All right. This is for EFL students, not for us. Okay, has anyone seen this before? The iceberg. It's the cultural iceberg. Okay? So on top we have food, music, language, visual arts, festivals, performing arts, literature, dress, games, flags, holidays. These are what we call big C culture. You can see these things. They're easy to teach. So people in the United States eat barbecue and go to McDonald's. Georgian people eat kinkali and they can do the Georgian dances, right? These are things this are usually how we teach culture because it's easy, okay? Unfortunately, the small C culture, the underneath things, these are the things that are really difficult to teach. They actually cannot be taught. They are learned, okay? And these things are what cause intercultural miscommunication. These are the things that say, oh, they're like this. These people are like that. They're dirty. They're rude. These people are loud. We're like this. They're like that. So it's disconnecting, right? Okay. So how do we teach multiculturalism if the things that cause these problems cannot be taught? Okay. So I actually have 3 steps that we're going to do to learn this. So our big C culture and our small C culture, this is something I do share with my students because they never really think about this. But what do our textbooks teach? Big C culture. They usually have all of you have studied English before. Have you studied any other languages? Okay, a lot of you have. When you were learning English or another language in the textbook, and it presented culture, what was the culture point used for? Usually to teach grammar. Or to teach a new vocabulary word, right? It wasn't actually it wasn't deeper than that. It was to say, oh, London is usually rainy, so people like to dress in gloomy colors and wear umbrellas. Or, Americans celebrate Thanksgiving the 4th weekend in November, and this is what they eat. Well, Americans come from all kinds of backgrounds and religions. Not every American celebrates Thanksgiving. A lot of them do, right? So we're just generalizing there. So on your list, your culture list, you wrote down many things that you thought of and things that I added to it. With your partner, I want you to think of one Georgian example for each thing you wrote. You could do one or two. And I'd like you to write, it can be big C or small c. I'd like to challenge you, how many small c cultures can you think of? So, on your list, once again, give one or two Georgian examples. Okay, I'll give you a few moments to think and talk about it. You can speak and write in Georgian, that's fine. I hope you put Georgian driving somewhere, because that's scary. That's a big C culture, very much. About 2 more minutes. 2 more minutes. Write as many as you can. Jokey, like making jokes, maybe humor, or just, let's see, probably part of language, the way we use our language. But also jokes are cultural, so down here, all of this is what makes a joke funny in a culture, right? Have you ever heard jokes from other cultures and you're like, huh? Because these things make it funny, usually. If it's like just what we call slapstick joke, like, you know, action joke, usually that's funny across cultures, but yeah, so it's a little bit of language, but a lot of the big little Okay, so you have a good list. Did you get some things?
Yeah.
Okay, now, you are all teachers, so I know you can be good actors. Okay, are you ready to be actors? Ready? Okay. Now, you are a foreigner. Where are you from? What country?
Spain.
Where are you from? Where are you from?
China.
Where are you from? Okay, everyone has a place they're from. Okay? Now I want you to look at this list and think. You have come to Georgia for the first time. What things on this list might be strange or unusual or just really, huh? Really? Everything? King Kali, that's just noodle stuffed with meat. Most cultures have that. That's not very strange. Huh?
Chinese have.
Yeah, it's not so strange. So really think, what would be very strange, unusual, maybe funny, maybe scary? Okay, so I'm going to give you 2 minutes to talk about it. Go ahead. Georgian's okay. Okay, everyone, I'm going to stop you. So, your teachers, you're Georgians again. Right? You're Georgians again. Now, as Georgians, I want you to go down your list, and for everything you wrote, I want you to say, why do we blah, 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 blah. For example, why do we eat truchella? Why do we eat truchella?
We like it.
Because we like it, okay? Because it's delicious? No. It's sweet? Well, if this is true, then everyone in the world would eat truchella. But they don't. So there has to be a different reason. What's the real reason Georgians eat truchella?
Because they have wine.
Because they have wine, and California has wine, France has wine, Italy has wine, Portugal has wine.
Yeah, but in Georgia it was specific because in armies were taking soldiers.
Yes, it was something the soldiers could take with them. It's a historical reason, right? So everything that you do or have or say has a reason, and it's not always historical. Sometimes it's tied to religion, sometimes it's tied to something else. So look at your list and say, why do Georgians da-da-da, or why is it like this in Georgia? And you cannot say, because it's Georgia, and you cannot say, because we're Georgian. Okay, you have to think of the real reason, okay? I'm going to give you about 5 minutes. Go ahead. This should be interesting.
Well, you can't say that
Why do Georgians put butter with the cheese on the chicken? Like, why not just cheese? Why do we need extra butter? She's like,
why? Because it's near the sea, so it's like water.
okay.
but the boy butter.
anyone talked about the driving?
No, actually,
You're just
we were
tiptoeing.
talking about
I'll let you continue. A few more minutes. If you can look at some small C culture things, even better. We can talk about those even better. Okay, so did you think of some interesting things? Yeah. Have you ever talked about your culture in this way?
Yeah.
Have your students?
No.
Probably not. We don't think about our own culture in this way. We don't say, why do we do this? Maybe you think about that on some things, but most things you don't think. Most people say, why do they do this? Why are they like this? Why do they eat this? But we don't do this about our own culture. So, oops, this was for the other class. Okay, you actually just did stage 1. Okay, stage 1 is talking and thinking about our own culture critically. So we started with, what is culture? We talked about it. Then we wrote different examples of Georgian culture. Then we pretended that we were foreigners, and we questioned some of the things. Then we went back to Georgians, and we said, why do we do this? We explained. So these are all activities. I wouldn't do all these in one class. You would stretch them out. But you could start the conversations in class and then give home tasks for students to think about or write about or blog about and discuss further in class. Okay? Those of you who have multiple cultures, this is a great opportunity. You could ask those students to ask their own questions about Georgian culture. For example, I'm American. So some things I've noticed, everywhere I go in Georgia, it doesn't matter, any building, maybe there's 2 doors or 4 doors or 6 doors, there's always only one door open, and everyone goes in and out. Why?
I can explain.
Why?
Because it's a bad habit from Soviet Union. They like to torture people.
They like to torture people? Okay. Because in my mind, this seems very unsafe if there's a fire. How do people get out if everyone's going out, you know? And also, I always am opening and nothing open. Or I have to go in one door and then walk down and in the other door, right? So it would be interesting for the foreigners in your class to ask their own, why do Georgians blah, 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 and have the classmates explain to them. Actually, the door thing is interesting. I think there's a lot of reasons. Probably one of them is security. A lot of the buildings can't afford security cameras, so it's a way to control who goes in and out. This could be a reason, right? There's always a reason for something. It just becomes habit, right? So this is a good way to incorporate your multicultural classes and your homogeneous classes. So these are the activities we just did. We questioned our own culture. We talked about culture. We learned about the little c and big C cultures. I couldn't find one of those ice icebergs in Georgian, but I didn't look very hard. You might have a cultural iceberg in Georgian. If not, it's easy to recreate it. You could just translate it, it's very easy. And put it on the web so that people can find it later on. Okay? So stage one, getting our students to critically think about their own culture as if they were thinking of it as a foreign culture. Okay? Then that leads them to stage two. Stage two, once they can look at their own culture differently, they can start to look at, for example, if they're studying English, they can look at English-speaking cultures. If you have students who are not studying any other languages, you could pretty much just focus on stage one and stage three and talking about any cultures. But if you later on have students studying English and they're taking English writing with you, getting them to connect with the English-speaking world, of course, is part of learning English, or German, or French, if you teach any of those others. Okay? So, stage two. So, here's an activity. First of all, I'd like you to read this passage, please. And some of the words you might not know, but that's okay. Just read over them. Who needs more time to finish? Anyone? Okay. Okay, if you're not finished, that's okay. So, of course, this is a passage from Harry Potter. Who wrote Harry Potter? Does anybody know?
Rowling.
J.K. Rowling. And where was she from?
England.
England. And where does this story take place, if you've read it? In England, right? In the UK. Okay? So, I'd like you to imagine that the author was Georgian, and that this takes place in Georgia, maybe even in Tbilisi. Okay? So, with your partner, talk about what would be different in this passage if the author was Georgian and it took place in Georgia. Think about big C culture and little c culture. I'm going to give you about 3 minutes. Go.
შეიძლება მოხდეს. ანუ სიგურად ჩვეულებრივ
But you can still integrate while Okay, so what do we think? What did you come up with? Who has an idea? What would we first change about this
The
puzzle?
very first is the weather.
Before Mr. and Mrs. Dursley, are there Dursleys in Georgia?
No.
No? What's a name we could change it to? Would it be Mr. and Mrs.?
Ruchadzen.
Okay,
Or Bakradzen.
yeah, anything. The name is very cultural.
Abadadzen.
Yeah. And do we usually label them Mr. and Mrs.? Or do we usually say their name and their patronymic?
No, we say family.
Yeah, so there we go. So that's the first thing we change,
Yeah.
right? Okay, now what we're going to start, we're going to change the weather, you said.
Yeah.
To
Hot
and sunny morning, okay? Good, what else?
and politically it was mysterious things were happening in
Well, this is about wizards, right? So
Yeah.
mysterious things could happen here too, right? We could probably keep that for the story, sure. Okay. What about Mr. Dursley picked out his most boring tie?
Actually,
It's
Mr.
boring tie. Georgians, he doesn't have a tie.
No.
So usually no tie, or if they have a tie, are they going to get the most boring one in Georgia, or the craziest?
He's shouting at her.
Okay,
right?
just like, oh, he's shouting at the wife? Okay. Yeah, where's my tie? He's making her get the tie. Okay, that could be one. All right, let's see. 8:30, he picked up his briefcase, gave her a cheek kiss, and head to work. Right? So, would we change anything here? Is this similar? I never see Georgian men with briefcases. Sometimes, but is it usual?
No.
Not so. I feel like it.
Just putting everything in.
I see Georgian men carrying bags. Okay.
Working hours is
Working
Yeah,
hours.
very late.
Okay, so working hours starts a little later, right? 8:30. That might be a little early.
Too early.
Yeah, too early. What else will we change?
The neighbor is the friend of wife is
Okay.
already home.
Okay. the wife's good friends already at the house,
Yeah.
and they're gossiping. Okay.
Yes, they are making coffee.
Okay. What else?
The child is running.
He's running around. Is he
Yeah.
eating cereal?
No.
What do they eat here? What?
No.
Like kasha or porridge?
Kinkali.
Kinkali?
Oh, couple.
Churchala?
No, he is
Kashi
eating
or-
great.
Little babies drink tea here? Yeah. It's interesting. Okay.
But porridge also real. This is
Porridge.
usual.
Yeah, porridge or kasha maybe, right? Okay. Anything else? He got into his car and backed out of the driveway.
Yeah, maybe it's possible, or
Yeah,
something will go there. And he will
So
be
most
okay.
people here, they park their cars in the driveway of their house.
Yeah.
Okay. I think a lot of people here live in apartments. Where do they park? They have driveway to their house?
Yeah. No, they are on the road.
Maybe they park on the street, or maybe a special parking area.
But he
Or-
will have a street.
Oh, yeah, a street or on the sidewalk. Yeah.
Yes.
Or maybe they're walking to the marshutka or the bus or the anything, right? Or carpooling. Okay. All right. So lots of things we can change. Another example I like to do is The Simpsons, because a lot of people are familiar. I play the opening scene of The Simpsons, and I ask students, what would you change if it was in your country, written by your culture? You can do anything. You can go to YouTube. You can get any dramas, any comedies from other countries. You can use readings from your books. If they're in English, usually they're taking place in another culture. Have students compare them to their culture. It's funny and fun for them. It's interesting, and it shows them that this could have been written or made by a Georgian just as easily as any other country, right? Culture is just relative. So it's a good way to open them up to that. So stage 2, that's one of the activities we do, literature or video cultural comparison. If you have students from other countries and they could talk about, do it for their country, how would it be different in their country, and share it with their classmates. You can bring in all kinds of things, magazines, newspapers, authentic materials, products from other countries. This is easier to get now that we have internet, for sure. And talk about what's the same, how would this look different if it was made by a Georgian? How would this advertisement be different? What would it look like? It's easy to get magazines now made in other countries. And they make for good writing assignments. You could send it, you could post it on your, Mojo. You could post it, write 250 words. How would this be different? What would you change? What would look different if this was created in Georgia? Okay. Some people like to do target language holidays. I don't know if it would be good for a writing class. That would be something for you to decide, but you could even have students write about other holidays in other countries. How are they the same? How is Easter the same in Georgia and the United States? And how is Easter different? Okay, looking at things like this, comparing. Have any of you ever sent an email to a teacher in another country and said, hey, our class would like to ask your class some questions, and your class can ask us some questions, and we'll exchange our answers, or we'll make a video and exchange, or we'll take pictures and exchange and write about each other's pictures. Have any of you done that? No. It's so easy and free and interesting.
I was a student.
What you're saying, and what did you think of this activity?
It was. I really enjoyed it. Because,
really enjoyed it. We had a Skype conference from It's
Tallinn
interesting,
to Finland.
right? It's interesting. It connects your students to the outside world, even if they can't travel. It gives them ideas for writing assignments. It could be part of their weekly blog. It could be a part of their connection that they're writing about to get them interested in your class, which is important for learning. Okay? All right, so finally stage 3, we're not going to do an activity for stage 3, but stage 3, once they have thought about their own culture critically, and once they have done activities to think about maybe English speaking or German speaking, or what's the closest culture here? That's the students. Azerbaijan. Could be, yeah, sure, it could be that. It could be those cultures as well. Now they can start to think of the world cultures in a broader perspective, because they're not just saying us and them. They're saying, oh, we have big C and little c culture, and they do too, and so do they. And I don't understand their little c cultures because I didn't learn it. I only see their big C. So why do they do this? Oh, it must be something from their little c culture. What could it be? Okay, it's opening students up to be more diplomatic, to think of world's cultures not as us and them, but as all of us, and we have these little C's that are a little bit different. Okay? So there's all kinds of different activities you could do here. A lot of these work better in language classrooms. You're doing more writing assignments, so I won't go through all of these, but you could think of all kinds of writing assignments. You could have students research a particular culture, and maybe their assignment is to write about the little C's, the little C culture, or compare and contrast 3 cultural aspects with ours. And here's some more that you could do. Global classrooms, project work, if you find yourself teaching this, I know most of you are just writing teachers, but you never know in the future what the future might hold for your department. You might have to be teaching more. So these are just some ideas to think about and to get your students thinking about. So when you're doing writing projects, you might want to even try getting students thinking about their own culture, and you can still teach your regular writing things if you stretch it out over the semester. Home tasks are always good. Group discussions are the best. Like you did today, I would start everything with a group discussion, maybe at the end of class or at the beginning, and give the rest of it as a home task for them to think about. They can sit out on the street and look at things in a new way and write them down. And it'll be interesting to see what they bring back into the class. Okay? So that's kind of the end. Okay? And we've got this cultural iceberg again, another one. What people see, and then what's hidden. And these are the things that really can separate us unless we understand that we all have these hidden little sea culture. So maybe this could be a good opportunity for any of you to recreate some of these icebergs in Georgian and get it out there. It could be interesting. Okay. Any questions? No questions? No. Comments? Okay. I do actually have an activity, a big activity I do with this presentation, but you're too small of a group. I need at least 15. So unfortunately we can't do that. But you kind of have an idea, maybe could spark some ideas for your own classes. Okay?
Well, we can adapt it.
Yeah, adapt everything. So like I said, all this stuff will be left for you to adapt and use as you need and to share with your colleagues as you need. So I hope that the trainings have given you some maybe new ideas, some writing topic ideas, some inspiration for your students. I wish we had more time together. Yeah, but I know you all have your summer endeavors. Maybe some of you have work, some of you have holiday. Anybody? Oh, the girl has holiday. Where's the other girl? She's already on holiday. She's the one that wanted it yesterday and today. So, well, you can share with them all, and I wish you the best of luck, and I hope that you have a new, maybe inspired school year, and that you can overcome and work together your challenges. How do you feel? Okay. Yeah. So I'm still here this weekend, next weekend. We're still working on the writing center stuff. We're waiting for your feedback on the master's syllabus. I kind of gave you that worksheet, some ideas, and you're brainstorming them. So and we'll still be.
I already have.
You have some. Okay. Okay.
Their ideas.
Ideas. Okay. So and we'll talk about them, but really this is your program. You're the teachers, and working all together is the best way to make it stronger and to implement the changes that you need. So, any last questions, comments, concerns?
Actually, it was really nice.
Good.
Really important because I never thought of all of the things. Well, I thought, but I didn't know how to make this. So now, after this class, I have an idea.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. I hope you enjoyed it. I tried to pick some trainings that could be useful to you because I'm a writing teacher. It's easy to get stuck and uninspired sometimes. There's so much information that sometimes it could get stuck even because there's too much. So it's all about keeping your students inspired, keeping them talking about themselves, right? Always relate it back to them. And writing class doesn't have to be boring. It doesn't have to be the old style. It's communicative. It should be.
Actually, all the problems with the students is that to make them be in the work, to be interested in this, to stay till the lesson and be active. And when I ask questions, they are always listening and I understand.
So make them ask the questions.
Yeah.
Make the students have a role as a teacher. They will be more participatory. People like to have that position. People like to be the questioners. They don't always like to be on the other side because then they can just say, I don't know. It's easy to just, sure. Right?
Like they are now.
Yeah. You've done fine. I understand because you're so close. It's summer. It's hard. You're in a classroom. You thought you were finished, but you had to come back, right? So I understand how it can be.
How many students are in your groups?
Most of my classes are 18 students. Yeah. If I ever teach lower levels, those classes are usually smaller, maybe 12 or 10, but average is 18.
And how many hours do you have in a week?
How many hours? Oh, let's see. I teach 4 classes, 30 hours. I teach 4 classes in a week. Most American classes, the native classes, they could have a lecture class could be up to 200, but a writing class usually averages between 20 and 30. That's the average
And
size.
and what course, like, what steps do you teach? For the first year students or for the last year students?
For the regular bachelor students or for the English language learners?
Yeah, actually, for example, we are teaching
You're teaching
first
freshmen.
year.
Yeah.
So it's important for them this knowledge to stay up to the 4th year because they have to write some of the writing.
So we have freshman composition. It's the first semester is 150. The second semester is 151. They are required to only take 1 semester. They are encouraged to take both semesters, but some students' majors, they don't need to do a lot of writing. So those students don't really need 2 full semesters of writing. Some students have research-heavy majors, and they do need both those semesters, and their academic advisors encourage them heavily that they should take both of those classes. Now, these students that come in, if they are native speaking Americans, they have had experience writing lots of it in high school. We start writing essays when we're in middle school. So they come in with at least an idea. They don't have to learn what an essay is. They usually don't have to learn what research is. But they have to learn how to refine their essays to be more academic, and they have to learn how to do more academic research, like databases. They have to learn that. And then a lot of them still have difficulties with plagiarism at times, just, that happens worldwide, right? But I find it happens more when the students are not proficient in that language because they're not quite sure how to do it, so it's easier just to copy. So that's how that's set up. Yeah, and then so like I said, if all students must take the semester. If they have a major where they're doing lots of research writing, they are heavily encouraged to take both semesters, which would be 1 year of academic writing. Yeah. Any other questions? I mean, you can always email me. I'll leave I didn't bring my business cards, but I have business cards. I'll just leave them with Maya, and you could always email me and feel free, or if you have questions, or if you want to share what you're doing as well. I have no Georgian except for Garma Joba and Mamlopa, and like, ara, ara, ara. I went down to ho, ho, ho. Okay, I got those. Yeah, but your English is fine, so I think I could probably understand. So, yeah, don't let me forget to leave those cards with you that I have. They're somewhere. I'm pretty sure I have them. Yeah. So, any other questions since we're all here? No? You're just waiting to... Should we get a photo together?
Yeah.
Okay.